My name is Alena. I am a visual artist myself, so I'm a visual artist, I'm a curator, I have a bit of experience in production as well, and I am a founder, of an artistic director, I gave myself a fancy title, of Abandoned Artists, which is my social enterprise that I established to support displaced artist community. Abandoned Artists we call it a talent agency with a twist. So I set it up with a purpose to give like a launch pad, like a support platform to displaced and migrant artists. Actually, we're going to open it also to migrant artists in Scotland. So to those who have creative background, but for some reason, mostly for, not necessarily because it was their choice, have been appeared to be in Scotland and lost the way. So basically lost the way to be on their creative career, to continue their creative journey. And for many people, it is, the reason for that was a war or humanitarian disaster, a conflict where they've been persecuted or forced to leave their country. So it's when life became a survival mechanism rather than a flourished life. So quite often artists in that case face enormous barriers to carry on their creative journey, which starts with language. Many of them don't speak English or don't speak English that is enough to apply for opportunities to make their career restart. But also, for example, we right now have a first cohort of Ukrainian artists that we kind of naturally started with because I'm from Ukraine myself, so it was natural to start helping that community when the war outbreak happened in 2022. So, for example, in that case, men are not allowed to leave the country legally. So most of our artists, like 98% of our artists, are displaced, but also women who appeared to be here with their children on their own. So they became single carers for their children, single providers for their family. So people do not speak English properly. They are always or often on benefits. They've got children to care for. They've got literally like everything works different in creative sector here compared to how it was in Ukraine. And it means that they just lost, like they don't even know where to start. It's quite often a bit maybe similar. You can compare it with when people like just out of graduation system. So when they are in graduation system, they have like a system set up for them. So in a way, it's challenging to get your degree in arts, but at the same time, the show is already done, organized for you, the materials are there, the equipment is there, you're going through the system. But once you're out of the system, then you quite often don't know how to basically make it work. But for displaced artists, it's even extra challenge because of they're not even part of the local community in many situations yet. They're basically thrown out of the country, and then they face all of these challenges, and many times it's said to them that you should forget about you've been an artist, you will never be able to survive on that. So they work on low-skilled jobs and something to make some sort of income just to actually survive. So that was like a main inspiration behind the project, to set up a social enterprise that would help them to connect together, but also to reconnect with their passion, with their talent. And the idea is to create opportunities for them. For example, we are trying to link them up with creative sector, with public commissions. We try to build partnerships with private sector so that artists have opportunities to generate some income from their talent. So at the moment we have a cohort of 23 artists, those who we work really close with, those who are our official members. So they are the whole bunch. So we've got like visual artists, we've got media artists, we've got interior designers, we've got crafters, we've got an art therapist, actually two art therapists I think at the moment. So all of them we've got one filmmaker. So yeah, so the diverse range of practice and previous experience. So some of them are a bit more emerging artists, some of them were actually quite successful in their own country, but thrown back here and trying to rebuild their creative practice. So yeah, we're quite happy with the range we've got. It's a very good question. So I have my previous experience in business, and that was more like a research project, which I did once I graduated from University of Stirling with my first initial degree in behavioral science. So that's my first background. And that time, with support of University of Stirling, I created, it was like a digital well-being project where we were building a digital tool to measure employee happiness and workplace well-being. So that was set up as a proper LTD, basically, business. I always felt in my heart that I'm more for social enterprise and for non-profit project, and I think just listening to too many advisors sometimes make you, deviated from what you initially planned. So 4 years later, almost 5 years later, when I was setting up Abandoned Artists, I knew initially that it's going to be a non-profit story. I thought about charity first, but what frightened me is that it's so complicated as an initial structure, and I just felt it's just easier to set it up as a social enterprise and then to see how it goes. So I don't know, at some point we might convert ourselves as a charity, but I like the social enterprise give that, so it's limited by guarantee, so it gives you the proper non-profit, you are reinvesting your profit back story, but at the same time it doesn't create that complications, and you can actually generate some income, you can trade, you're just not as restricted as Kick with how restricted charities are. So I found that it's just easier to navigate to begin with. The aim is actually what it started with. I envisioned it as in the heart of it as a professional development program for displaced artists to navigate their current point of creative practice. So first of all, I want to open it up for any displaced artists. And when I'm saying displaced here, I specifically do not want to use the term refugee, which is many artists actually, many people who are here because of that humanitarian disaster, they find it offensive because it put them in a certain box, and it almost gives no hope that they can actually become like a normal citizen again. So that the whole language about people with those experiences is actually quite painful, and it makes sense a lot for funding to put people in certain boxes, but literally displaced is probably the closest term for me to relate to that. And not necessarily people have those painful experiences. I want to open it up to any artists who identify themselves as displaced, because sometimes you can be maybe migrating between countries or cities and feeling completely lost. And I want Abandoned Artists to actually be open for those creatives who, for some reason, lost their way. And then professional development program, how I see it, which we want to develop really in partnerships with other creative organizations and potentially maybe some impact-driven businesses as well. It's it would allow us to bring a small cohort of artists, maybe we can do it twice in a year, and we can go through a certain period of time, let's say maybe 3-4 months, which would be designed with learning activities for them, mostly curated for enhancing their conceptual thinking, but also showing them the ways how can they basically generate income from their creative practice, because there are different ways. A lot of the artists, they think that the only way to survive is you have to establish your relationship with a certain gallery. You have to crawl in front of the gallery manager, and then maybe one day. But that's only one way, and actually even the whole curation space is right now challenging and changing. So there are so many other ways. There is, exactly like you mentioned, art therapy route. There is a craft route. There is a maker route. There is a fine art route exhibiting in alternative spaces. There is a teaching artist route. There is a route to be to work on creative projects and commissions. A lot of artists just don't know about it. And it all starts with something like how to create your personal statement, how to articulate your practice in writing so that other people can understand what is it all about. What is it my practice even about, But it is also about making that precious time for artists to actually create new work. Why we designed the artist kitchen, that maybe we can talk later about, it's not just about location to get together, which is also a crucial element of it, but it is also about to provide artists space, and that they can make almost an appointment with themselves to create, because a lot of folk who lost the way, you probably heard about creative blocks. They're blocked and they find it very difficult to start making again. And actually the idea of the professional development program is during that period of time, it's to develop in their conceptual thinking, but it's also to make new work. And then at the end of each cohort, the idea that we will create a showcase for them so that people can be introduced to the work of the artists. Then, because I mentioned this talent agency model I want to develop, some of those artists will stick with us and become our members so that they can have access to some opportunities that we will work hard to open for them in partnerships with creative public and private sector for regular projects. Of course, that won't be maybe available for everyone, but for those artists who really would show how serious they are about their practice, because some artists might just keep it as a side hobby project aside, but for some artists for whom creative career is the way of living and it's important, then I'm passionate to unlock that kind of talent and give the route to develop that. So that was why, and that is still why we're doing it. It's just we just traded a bit more than a year, and we are exactly in what you call a funding gap thing. Is when we already understand that our ambition for bigger pots of funding, but it's just to articulate our way towards that, and it's to get to that next stage is exactly what we're dealing with. That's why the pilot for the professional development program is kind of, it's postponed a little bit, maybe longer than I wanted it. As I already said, the first cohort of artists that we have, those are Ukrainian artists and makers. Naturally happened, I volunteered in Edinburgh airport after the outbreak of the war in 2022, and a lot of actually people who work with us today I met there with suitcases, and that was the first introduction. So then I volunteered for Ukrainian Community Center, IUGB in Edinburgh, and started to develop as a visual artist and as a teaching artist roots with organizations like Volunteer Edinburgh. We then did a very fascinating project for displaced communities linked up with National Galleries of Scotland and Arts in Healthcare and the Welcoming. So that was almost testing some ideas about what is needed. And then what I realized, so at the moment we've got a bit of a diverse community. So we have one group of professional artists who we work with, and we run for them activities like artist circles, for example, on a monthly basis, or they can come here and work in the studio space on a kind of sharing rota, schedule to book a space and then to a certain amount of hours or days, and that's provided for them for free. But we also have a wider community of displaced, mostly women, who are not necessarily professional artists, but they come to our project that is called Creative Spark, that had been done in collaboration with Life with Art charity. And those are weekly creative classes where they're open for all people who, again, identify themselves displaced, and they just try different creative techniques and kind of ways to express themselves creatively. Some of them, interestingly enough, then to move to our more professional group of artists if they find that's the way to go. Some of them just stay there and enjoy the community, build an element of it, and that atmosphere where they can be free, let's say. So at the moment, as I said, we mostly work with Ukrainians because it's naturally, historically happened, but next month we're going to open up already more to allow like migrant artists to start maybe like coming in, and to begin with to use the space. And actually I really want to integrate like displaced community of artists with local community of artists. So for me, for example, if artists with migrant background will start mentoring our displaced artist community, for example, towards their final show that we are planning to have in September or October for them as the first graduating cohort, then I think that's where the links start building up a bit more. And then, as I said, the ambition is to open it more to any displaced like organizations, or any organizations who work with displaced and migrant creatives who might just need some help. Because, for example, there are quite a few organizations who work with displaced community in general, like from different countries, but they might not necessarily have like a creative pathways for them. So we really want to reach out those organizations, because we see it only partnership way of building connections, and then to have a clear system of signposting creatives who come and might need other help, like mental health route or like something else. We can just exchange and signpost people between us, because don't see it as a solitary journey, to be honest, and never intended to. Quite a lot of support, actually. To begin with, actually, I stepped into ESEN to talk when Abandoned Artists was all as a concept idea. So I had someone from displaced community. We walked to talk to the meeting with Steven, and I explained him that that's what I'm planning to do, and he was the one who said, "Oh, let's just make it happen. Let's help you to establish it." And even first couple of workshops I've been at just helped me to structure the concept, to understand the kick is the right way to do it, like the way I feel it. So that was like the first navigation, and then Stephen added us to the social enterprise network. So I straight away got a chance to actually communicate with other social enterprises, to see what happens. And with then via those network connections met Little Living Room, who then created our logo and branding, and that was the project that it was a great project to work together. Again, that exchange when a small social enterprise supports another small social enterprise, and then the connections happened. So like Becca now from Little Living Room works for ESEN, and then she's setting up this new network of social entrepreneurs for women, which we are going with the team next week to participate in. So I think it's been a lot of kind of linking connections, and a couple of workshops I found really useful. For example, as a founder who is constantly exposed to stress and constantly changing environment, there was a taster workshop that I went for specifically for founders about their well-being, and I found that half a day extremely rewarding, because it's so easy to get into this kind of doing mode and constantly firefighting mode, whereas I think social enterprise and their network helps me to reconnect with what's really important, And like there's always opportunity to learn, to send your team for learning that is accessible, available for us, it's like free. And it's a way to reflect on your own ideas and maybe to get some peer-to-peer feedback that is, again, crucially important. Just thank you to Social Enterprise for every support you are doing, and I think it's amazing that a lot of that support is given us for free. It's accessible, it's available, and it's whoever I meet, I absolutely feel connected into the project. So good to meet you. So just spread my thank you to all the team around. Well, I mean, I never stop talking probably about this funding support that everyone right now needs, and I think I look at funding right now a bit maybe wider than I used to. For me, it's like access to resources, and there are a lot of funding opportunities, but I think it is important to understand what funding is exactly right for you at this certain stage. I think the one support that we would definitely benefit, and I think many social entrepreneurs is really to learn a bit more about how to articulate your current needs to those funders that are out there, so that you can get, you can be heard and seen in the right way. Because I do feel like we are facing a very interesting time. So on the one hand, we constantly as social entrepreneurs mourn about lack of funding and like a lot of funding cuts, in particular in creative sector and everything. At the same time, I'm constantly told that there is a lot of money available out there which quite often we don't know about, or maybe as a female founder, I know that's for sure that quite often I feel maybe lack of readiness or confidence to apply for certain funding. Like you can see you're not ticking one box and you think, what is the point, like even to try? So I feel like it's almost like there is a missing, like a link between what's available there for what stage and what particular businesses. And it would be, I almost imagine this like a gene sort of thing, like a imaginary person who like points you to the right direction, saying, oh, by the way, this particular funding pot would be really good for these members of our community, and maybe this one for that. And by the way, shall we maybe get together and work on preparing like applications and something like that? Shall maybe like a couple of social enterprises get on a joint application? Sometimes just because like it's not necessarily lack of willingness to do that, it's lack of just even like you're trying to do everything, and sometimes I think we're all working in isolation on writing those bloody funding applications, but then we're maybe chasing the wrong opportunities. So I think that's what I'm more looking for, like to find like a magic wand to almost like guide me through the right funding opportunities, so that you are focusing that limited resource in terms of your energy and time towards the right way. And another thing I think, well, Becca in a way is already doing it, right? I feel like it's nice if there is a bit more, again, like we as founders are like really caught up with day-to-day activities, and I think to have a bit more tailored opportunities in terms of like bring us back to strategy, bring us back to what's really important, or maybe like how to lift yourself out of darkness. I was like just recently joining one very interesting like workshop called like Success Without Sacrifice, provided by Unlimited, who is one of our funders. And I found that 1.5 hours extremely rewarding for my mind and soul, because you're like listening, like it's so easy to get burned out, and the rate of burning out is enormous right now, not only within startup community, but within social entrepreneurs in particular. So many projects, it's almost like it's a magic, not dark magic, kind of like timing, which is like 3 years. You do it for 3 years, you're then out of your energy, out of your resource, and that's when you are nearly there. I noticed it so many times. You are nearly there, but you have quite often you are in debt financially, in debt psychologically and mentally, and you are out of there. Probably everything happens for the right reason, and quite often those people then start helping other founders, but like we're in a loop. So I think if there is a bit more support in terms of actually almost like grab the founder just before that happened and help them, like almost like not to create an accelerator, but de-accelerator sometimes for founders, maybe to actually get them, grab us and get to that bloody retreat for a few days where all we will talk about is how to help yourself once you are drowning, because it's so easy to drown. So something like that, I think it's very valuable. Well, I'm excited about, I hope, let's put it like that we are out of, we really did a lot of groundwork last year, and we got our first venue, we've got our first cohort of artists, and I think it was difficult, we literally we launched and we tried to tell the world that we exist. I'm excited about to really speak up a bit more about who we are, and actually about those sustainable link-ups and partnerships that I envision we would make, because I do believe in the power of community, which is, a new breed of enterprises right now, a new breed of not necessarily social enterprises, but businesses who are more impact-driven. I see there is a massive change right now that a lot of businesses, in particular led by, maybe younger generations, they are not necessarily thinking about profit. I mean, you have to make profit, of course, if you're a business, but it's also about how to give back to community, how to really support, more social projects. And I think, I had a very interesting conversation recently about, because I'm kind of wearing two hats, right? I am an artist myself, so I have a lot of connections and friends from creative community, but I also have connections and build right now connections more with businesses, and creative community sometimes is a bit skeptical about what I'm doing because they feel like you're going to sell your soul to a business, because then they will push you towards direction you don't want to take. Now, I want to really demystify this, and of course, there are art washing strategies for businesses, and as well as greenwashing strategies, and it's probably there is a way to sell your soul for sure, but I also believe that there is a way to build up more a holistic way or sustainable way of, maybe there's a missing link actually between those businesses who would like to support creatives and those creative companies who just do not have necessarily enough funding just from public. It's a lot of burden on public funding, and not I'm speak up on behalf of them, but it's not sustainable just to rely on grants. And for us, it's the way to get more sustainable, which is again in our we are in, we deal with communities that is extremely fragile. And for us, I envision and I'm excited about that sort of almost link with companies who have financial means to support displaced artist community, but not necessarily begging for money, but it's more can we actually deliver some value to them in a way that not necessarily selling our soul, but actually expressing ourselves more, and maybe also highlighting their brand in a different way. So that's what's exciting. And of course, I'm excited about ways to find out more opportunities to bring the professional development program to life, which, as I said, ever since why it started. So that means that if that happens, it means that I'm excited that my part team can be converted into maybe full-time, employees, but also we can grow a little bit more, team, and bring more people on board to actually make it a bit more, again, not scattered around, but a proper project. So I hope we get more grounded and more sustainable this year. That's what makes me excited, at least in my dreams. But I also probably want to add something on behalf of the artists. I'm excited that we are making their voices to be heard this year. I'm really excited about the show that we are going to make for our artist cohort, hopefully in September and October, and we're actually looking for the venue for that show. That's a big, again, venues are challenging, but I do believe we'll find the right way. And we already even came up with the theme for the show. The theme is going to be, a match is silent, but it speaks. And I think that showcase, I don't want it to make like something like just community art kind of thing. No, I want to make it as a proper showcase to really elevate some of the new emerging artists' voices so that they can be seen, heard, and hopefully, like they will find their own audience. That's super exciting to me as an artist, as a curator myself. I have a very interesting relationship with Edinburgh. I came to Edinburgh first time in 2012 as a tourist, as visiting my friends. And my very first phrase when we landed was, I would never live in this city. Because it was like a very bad rainy summer. We came up with, I lived in India at that time, sunny India. Coming to Edinburgh, I just found it grey, cold, and it got to my bones straight away. And I don't know, I didn't feel like my first few days, I just thought this is never going to be my city. And then literally a few years later, because I came to Scotland to study, I lived in Stirling, and then after I finished in Stirling, so my classmate heard that phrase and he said, I'm going to make you love Edinburgh. And I was laughing at it, but then reconnecting with creative scene and actually realizing that that's like a very hidden spirit of the city that kind of resonates with me a lot, I got in love. And funny enough, I was laughing about it, but last year, for example, just to make a little bit of extra money, but also doing that I found interesting, I even ran like a kind of art tour, which I called for tourists, which I called kind of connecting with Edinburgh spirit via art and coffee. And that made me laugh because a lot of people ask me this question, so what is it you love about Edinburgh? I love everything right now about Edinburgh, maybe besides the weather sometimes, but even that already, like I grew to that sort of stage. But I think it's a city that doesn't necessarily show itself straight away. I think it's a city that has got so much hidden and so much to discover, like those hidden layers. And I think that gets me excited. Every time you think you know the city so well, and then you go somewhere and you think, God, it's like how this can be a certain venue, a certain community, a certain, project, a certain location, you're like, it's breathtaking sometimes. So I think it's a very unique city in it on its own, like we have so much like, ancient structures. At the same time, we have vibrant creative community and actually community. And it's a capital, which is one of the smallest capitals in the world, so we have a lot of access to opportunities. But at the same time, we are so close to nature. And that's, of course, what I value a lot. London Artist is a talent agency with a twist, supporting displaced and migrant artists to rebuild their broken creative careers.